Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Wim Lou. I'm joined by TSN's Josh Lewenberg as we will look ahead to the trade deadline for the Toronto Raptors and the rest of the NBA, which will be taking place at 3 p.m. Eastern this Thursday. Very awkwardly, the Raptors actually have to play a game later that afternoon against the Chicago Bulls, I believe. So who knows? If you are looking to see a couple players, maybe Ochai Agbaji for the last time as a Raptor, maybe get tickets to that Timberwolves game that's taking place on the Wednesday. Josh, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm tired, but I'm good. I'm getting a bit of a taste of what it must be like for like the NBA executives or Shams at this time of the year, but instead of fielding calls and making or breaking trades, I'm changing diapers and cleaning up baby vomit.
Yeah, well, arguably that's better. I think life-wise, that's definitely better. So,
Yeah, yeah.
I
Who
want to
needs
say
sleep?
congratulations too. First off,
Thank you.
for
Thank you.
I know you're taking a very special time out of your life right now to do this episode, which
This is my favorite
is
podcast, but and you know that. Alex knows that.
yeah.
Where is Alex also? How dare he not show up to this? But what we didn't know was that this is also Kyle Lowry's favorite podcast. He was in town a couple weeks ago and mentioned to you that he loves your work. And look, the Groat doesn't hand out
Man,
compliments like that. So
I'm
how
happy
could
I
I
had
say no to
witnesses on
this?
hand for that. I'm
Yeah.
very happy I had witnesses on hand for that because that was very cool.
You were telling
It
people
was
about
great.
it and they're like, no way.
No, I mean it's one thing to be like, yo, Kyle said all this about me, but yeah, it was great. Honestly, I hope Kyle comes back to Toronto eventually and does like. You remember when Vince did those TV hits and he was on the broadcast for like 5 games. During his jersey retirement season. I would love for that to happen with Kyle, and I would love for like him to be joined by whoever. You know what I mean? Like him and Alvin, him and Demar. Just the chemistry would be incredible.
Yeah, and it's going to happen pretty quick, right? Like, this is
Yeah.
almost certainly his last season, year number 20. I think that was like the milestone that he wanted to hit, and he's done
Hmm.
it. He's going to retire a Raptor, and then like they're not waiting to unveil that
No.
banner. Like that's going to happen ASAP. So,
Yeah. I
something
did
to look
recently
forward to
watch
next
the
season.
I watched the Bulls jersey retirement for Derrick Rose, and I know Derrick Rose is special for Chicago because he's from Chicago, and there's like a big story there, and he won MVP, which something Kyle never did. But I feel like that has to be like the bar for how the Raptors got to clear it because everything they did around Derrick Rose, bringing the former teammates in, they had a really cool segment. I don't know if you've seen this where they had an empty United Center. They just had Derrick Rose and a couple of his teammates, Joakim Noah, Kirk Heinrich, Taj
Yeah.
Gibson, and then they just had the screen, the jumbotron, and they had a remote control essentially, and they would just watch through these memorable moments from their run. I was like, damn, like imagine that from like for Kyle and Demar and I don't know, maybe Kawhi shows up. Hopefully, maybe it'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, look, like the Vince Carter retirement, jersey retirement was polarizing, right? Like not
Yep.
everybody felt great about that. I would probably be in that camp of not feeling great about it, but like I'm the first to
Mm,
admit, like they did the organization did an incredible job with the ceremony. The banner was really, really cool. This is going to be embraced and beloved by everybody. Like, is there anyone
yes.
that feels like Kyle Lowry shouldn't have his jersey retired by the Raptors at this point?
No. Come on.
So
Yeah.
yeah, like that's gonna be really, really cool.
Yeah.
And like I mean a montage of greatest Kyle Lowry moments, even just charges alone, like I'm here for that.
Just
I'll watch
charges.
10 minutes of Kyle stepping in front of like DeMarcus Cousins and Embiid
Yeah. I think
crawling
we.
under George Hill's legs.
I think we just talked to Jamal Shad at practice the other day, and we were asking Jamal
Yeah.
about taking offensive fouls and stuff, and he was mentioning watching Kyle, which I was like, that's really cool because yeah, man, Kyle was a maniacal competitor, but
And he
this is
loves
the one
hello and
episode.
welcome.
And he didn't say the show in particular, but I will personally use that as an endorsement going forward. The growth, fucks with the program, which is huge.
Goat
Um,
endorsed.
let's pivot to just what everyone's like obsessing about right now, which is the NBA trade deadline. It's coming up in a couple of days. Josh, we'll start with the biggest name that's been linked to the Raptors, especially in the last couple of weeks. Domantas Sabonis. The Raptors reportedly have some level of strong interest in Domantas Sabonis. This has been reported at several outlets now. what are you hearing about Domantas Sabonis, and sort of what do you make of the situation in terms of what he'd be a fit in Toronto, and what it would have cost to bring him in?
Yeah, like everyone I've talked to is having a pretty hard time gauging how much traction there's actually been, but I think there's definitely something here, probably more so than, I mean, look, like we know that their name is going to come up whenever there's a star that is either available or perceived to be available, and it's already happened, but I never felt like there were legs to the Anthony Davis thing. Like I think they
Felt a
weighed the
bit
pros and
forced.
the, yeah, well, Rich Paul. I think there was some wish casting there on the part of AD's reps, and then like Ja Morant, that wasn't going to
Yeah.
happen. That was
No.
Memphis using them as leverage, which happens, and maybe that's what Sacramento is doing. I mean, who knows what Sacramento is doing at any time? So, like that's part of I think the mystique of this situation because it's like, okay, well, what does Sacramento want to do? Who knows?
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, for the Raptors, like it almost feels a little bit like the Ingram situation last year, where it feels like there's more than just smoke here. But as usual for the Raptors, like it's going to come down to cost and whether or
Hmm.
not like they can justify this as a buy low scenario because like are they paying full price for Domantas Sabonis? No chance. I would be
Right.
shocked. So how desperate is Sacramento? It does kind of seem like they are highly motivated to make a move and maybe move on from the Sabonis era, but I think there are a few caveats, and we'll talk about that. I think the sticking points right now, or at least the major obstacles that are in the way of getting something done and could ultimately be the deal breaker here, and neither of these are going to come as a surprise. One is Jakob Pertl, his health and his contract, and then two is draft compensation. I think with Pertl, like that would have been a tough sell even without the injury for a team like Sacramento taking on long-term salary. Probably would have to attach some sweeteners, picks,
Hmm.
prospects, whatever. And then on top of that, you throw in the fact that this is a 30-year-old 7-footer who's been out indefinitely with a lingering back thing. Nobody knows when we'll see him again or what condition he'll be in when he gets back on the court. And he's under contract through his mid 30s. So, yeah, if I'm Sacramento, and again, who knows what Sacramento is going to do. But if I'm Sacramento, yeah, I'm certainly saying, like, give me some high level prospects and give me a whole bunch of picks. Now, like, the only high level prospect that the Raptors have that anybody's really going to want, no offense to Jacoby Walter and Grady Dick, who probably like haven't shown enough to be anything more than neutral assets at this point. It's CMB, and he's not going anywhere. Certainly not for Domantas Sabonis. So then we move to picks. The Raptors in this front office, or a version of this front office, Masai and now Bobby, they've never. Correct me if I'm wrong. They've never traded multiple first round picks in the same deal, and they're not going to do that for the first time for Domantas Sabonis. I,
Hmm.
I'd be shocked. So that's the sticking point. Like, would they do this for RJ Barrett and Jakob Pertl? I think they'd strongly consider it. Would they
Hmm.
do it if it was like RJ Yak and one protected first rounder? Maybe, and that might be the compromise. And again, like we'll
Yeah.
see how motivated Sacramento is to meet them in the middle. But Yak, RJ, multiple first round picks. That's what Sacramento's going to ask if they haven't been asking already. And I would be really, really surprised at that price for a player that like, I was
Right.
listening to you guys the other day talking about Sabonis, and like I thought it
I
was a
was trying to talk
nuanced
myself
convert.
into it, man, but
No, and it was like look, I feel similarly to Sabonis as you guys do. I mean, maybe a little bit higher on him as a player,
okay.
but like
Yeah.
the fit is murky. Like I think, I mean, certainly an upgrade at the 5 based on the current situation and the big question mark that is Jakob Pertl. He's a really good player, Sabonis, but
Hmm.
yeah, like he doesn't address all of their needs at the position, certainly on the defensive end where there are a lot of questions. So again, like is this the time that Bobby says after how long have they been here? 12 years, something like that. And I get it. He's not Masai, and that's why this is interesting because this is his
Hmm.
first chance to really put his stamp on the team. And maybe he does something different. But I mean, I think like based on context clues alone, the way that him and Masai have always kind of seemed aligned in their vision. And the way that he's operated to this point, taking an approach that is very similar to Masai's, where I would say patience, opportunistic, sure, but patience. Um,
Hmm.
like mortgaging the future, trading 2 or 3 picks for a guy who, like, if he's the perfect fit, sure, but Sabonis and a guy who's like tight. I mean, they're already in a really tough spot from a financial standpoint. I crunched the numbers yesterday, but like the 3 guys, Sabonis, Ingram, Barnes, that's $127 million next year. The cap is 166, so that's 77% of your cap for
Yep.
3 guys. You add an IQ, and that's 96% of your cap. Like you got to feel really, really good about that group and feel like that's a team that can contend. You'd be paying the tax probably for it, right? So I don't know that it just doesn't make sense for me unless you come away with it with a whatever the equivalent of Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, and a first round pick is, and
Right.
that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, I think in order for, I think in order for the Raptors to say yes, the price can't be higher than one additional first rounder,
Yeah.
in addition to RJ and Yak. I
Yep.
think a lot of this is really contingent on how desperate Sacramento is to just get rid of their players. I mean, we've already seen them, make a bit of a teardown move. Actually, I don't even know if it's teardown, really. I mean, trading,
Lateral.
yeah, Dennis Schroeder, by
Again,
the way,
who knows what Sacramento does and why they do it?
Right. By the way, imagine you're Dennis Schroeder right now, man. Hey, I think he's hit the Cleveland Cavaliers will be his 12th team. I believe he
Yeah.
posted it on Twitter the other day when he got traded. He's like, Cleveland, let's go. He tweeted out Cleveland, let's go. The location in his bio was Detroit, and the header in his it was Sacramento. So he was literally representing 3 teams, as Dennis Schroeder tweeted out about
Don't
his newest
unpack,
one. But
Dennis.
oh man, I feel bad for Dennis because he's got 3 kids and a wife, man. Like
Yeah.
it's really unfortunate how often they got to move.
And
But,
the 11 or
um,
12 teams or whatever it is, like most of them are in the last 3 or 4 years. He spent like almost half his
yeah,
career in like Atlanta and OKC. And then ever since then,
yeah, he's been
yeah, it's,
cycling. Well, I mean, yeah, and just in the last year alone, he's gone
yeah,
from Brooklyn to Golden State to then going to Detroit. He had it's very rare to see a player traded twice within 1 year, but he was. It's almost actually impossible in the CBA, but they managed to trade him twice in 1 year. Went to Detroit, then went to Sacramento, and now he's in Cleveland. But I mean, yeah, it really is a question of how motivated the Kings are to just get rid of everybody. I certainly
yeah.
think that they are in a fire sale mode, so it'll be curious to see how much they get done because they have a lot of pieces they want to ship out. Sabonis looks like DeMar probably is on his way out as well. Zach LaVine doesn't really seem movable, but if they can, they would probably try to move him. I think the other part too is just how much they value RJ Barrett because I think this is another conversation, but like I think a game like last night really demonstrated in the Raptors win over the Jazz, like the value that RJ has. Because like a lot of times the Raptors get really stuck on offense and they can't really do much. In particular, getting to the basket and scoring in the paint. And I think that it's not nothing to lose RJ. I think it would actually be a pretty significant hit. Now, if you can upgrade from RJ, and Sabonis in a vacuum is a better player than RJ Barrett, but I just feel like I think you would need Sacramento to really value RJ as part of this deal as a positive asset because I think that can offset a little bit of the extra first you might have to throw into this. And then I think for the Toronto side, like you have to, even though you bring in Sabonis, I still think you need to bring in more backcourt scoring help because,
Yeah.
I mean, as we've seen, RJ's backups, whoever you want to pick, and Darko literally cycled through 4 of those guys yesterday between Grady Dick, Jacoby Walter, Jamison Battle, Ochai Agbaji. None of those guys could even combined score the way RJ can in just one game by himself. So I don't know. That's
Well,
my
that's
take
an
on the whole thing.
Yeah, that's another problem is like there would almost certainly have to be like a subsequent move, something else that you do in addition to making that trade in order to fortify the backcourt. And shooting, I know we'll get to it, is obviously a huge issue for this team. And I know nobody looks at RJ Barrett and says, shooter, like that's
Mhm.
obviously not what he's known for, but the guy can knock down an open shot. He's a serviceable shooter at that position. And I probably feel more comfortable with him than Grady Dick taking those shots, or even Jacoby, who's been very streaky as a shooter early in his career. Yeah, like again, if you're making this move, it's a win now type of move, and you've created then this big hole at another position, an important position.
Hmm.
To not like again, we talked about it. Sabonis isn't the perfect center for this core. Now, look, the other thing, and I know we'll talk about the Giannis situation too, at least in
Hmm.
terms of how it relates to the Raps. But right now, like the Giannis situation relates to everybody. I think this
Right.
hangs over the trade deadline in a huge way because the league is at a standstill right now, as it should be. Everybody's waiting for the big domino to fall. And what if it doesn't? What if Giannis doesn't get traded before Thursday? And I think there's a very, very reasonable chance that he doesn't. So then all of a sudden you've got the Giannis suitors, the teams that feel like they have a real shot at him, which is, I imagine it's a lot of teams right now that are
Right.
chasing him. They're going to want to keep their powder dry and not hang on to their assets until he is eventually moved. And then even the teams like Sacramento has no chance at Giannis, but they have pieces that they're trying to sell off.
Yeah.
Do the selling teams wait as well and thinking like, okay, let's wait until the Giannis shoe drops and try and take advantage of the teams that don't get him because yeah, I mean I
Hmm.
think once he gets moved, the floodgates are going to be open. There are going to be teams that strike out on him that all of a sudden are looking at other pieces, other stars on the market. I think there's a very good chance that's what ends up happening with Anthony Davis. I mean, obviously there's the injury there, which is kind of
Right.
poured cold water on that a little bit too, but like makes sense for Dallas to hold off and wait until the off season. So like maybe it makes most sense for Sacramento to say, all right, well, we have the Sabonis piece. He's under contract. There's no sense of urgency to do it now. Let's wait and see if we can get more for him in the summer. If Giannis
Hmm.
doesn't get moved before the deadline, we could be looking at a pretty quiet Feb 5th, I think.
No, I think that's a great point. Actually, if I were the rest of the league, I'd be a little bit pissed about Giannis and the Bucks in particular
Yeah.
because like the will he won't he situation, and whatever. It's Giannis's life. It's the Bucks. I mean, it's the Bucks' life basically as well. Like this is like the most important thing that's going to happen, probably to both these two parties with Giannis and the Bucks.
So
But
why
like,
rush it?
but enough is enough, man. This pump faking of like, hey, everybody
Yeah.
get your ducks in a row. Let's all break out into meetings. Let's all like essentially sort our teams and figure out which guys are going to be available for Giannis. It's just like if I were the rest of the league, I'd be pissed at the Bucks. Like you got either do it or don't. Like this is like the third at least time maybe that he's pump faked about this. Like how are the Knicks supposed to even operate for this season? I know the Bucks don't owe the Knicks anything, but it's just like dude, it's not even you know what I mean? Like it's just annoying. Like it genuinely is just annoying. And I think
It
from
should have happened
Toronto's
in the off season. I mean, like,
yeah.
I get it if you're like the Bucks and you're thinking, okay, well, like maybe the Knicks, maybe the Heat are options, and they can offer a whole bunch more during the summer, just in terms
Hmm.
of like the picks that they'll have available. So, and it's always easier to make major change and to go out and field big offers in the summer where teams have more
Sure.
flexibility. So I get it. Like that's a tough trade to make in the middle of the season. That's why I said like why rush it in the next week. But like yeah, in terms of like it does feel weird to use the word rush when it comes to Giannis and the Bucks because it does feel like we've been talking
Hmm.
about this forever. The time to do it would have been in the offseason. And in a way, I've
Yes.
been thinking about this a lot lately. Like it's a weird comparison to make because Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby are not Giannis Antetokounmpo, but it does
Hmm.
kind of feel like I mean the Raptors were kicking the ball down the road like
Oh yeah.
much longer than they should have when like the rebuild felt inevitable, and it never works out. I mean, they're going to get more than the Raptors got for Pascal Siakam. It's a different situation and a different
Hmm.
player,
Yeah,
but
of
I
course.
feel like in any case, like the longer a player is on the market, your leverage goes down, and I think like it gives teams, and we just saw this with Trey Young. It gives teams and fans, people around the league, more time to poke holes in that player's game to the point where they become almost underrated. Now, like Giannis just might be the exception to the rule, but
Yeah.
it gives teams time to not only like figure out if they're going to do it, but like talk themselves out of it almost.
Yeah, you overthink it in a way,
Yeah.
which I think. I mean, especially in this situation with Giannis, like I guess especially in this market in Toronto, like we have thought about Giannis a lot. Yeah, I made the joke the other day that we have seen Giannis in every iteration of the Raptors City Edition jerseys for the last
Yeah.
5 seasons. Um, like, but this time around, especially with Giannis now again available, perhaps more available than ever, you don't even hear the Raptors' names. Like, have you heard Giannis's name? I feel like, in my opinion, some of those dreams walked out the door when Masai walked out the door. And maybe they were always just dreams, but I don't know. You don't even hear it as much, in my opinion. But
Yeah,
what do you see?
it's always felt like a bit of a pipe dream. I don't know how much it's actually connected to Messiah. I agree with you. Like I think like he was kind of the face of it just based on like the relationship, the known relationship that he has with Giannis and his family and his
Yep.
representation.
Mm-hmm.
I, in reality, though, like I don't know that Giannis was ever going to come to Toronto just based on his relationship with the lead executive in the same way that he's not going to say, well, I don't want to go to Toronto based on
The
Bobby
fact that he's gone.
Webster.
Right.
Exactly. Like, I think it was always going to come down to like timing. I think timing is the issue more than anything else because right now, like a few years ago, you could probably have talked yourself into moving Scotty Barnes for Giannis Antetokounmpo a lot easier than you can now. Now it's a tough sell. Like
You're not going to do it
certainly
now,
for
to be honest.
yeah.
You've already built something around him that you would like to pair him with any sort of incoming star.
And if you're getting Giannis, at least in the next few days, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like as I said, if you're Milwaukee, you're not rushing into this. You're not doing this now unless I talked to somebody around the league recently who told me that like Milwaukee is telling teams they are not doing this now unless they get the Godfather offer. Now, I mean, they might just be saying that and they should be saying that. They should probably
Yeah.
approach it that way too though, right? So like the only Godfather offer that the Raptors could offer, and they could offer a Godfather offer, but it would have
Mm-hmm.
to include Scotty Barnes. Now we could argue and debate whether or not they should be willing to do that. And I think that's fair because I still think like you could potentially make that argument, but that's not the conversation we're having here. We're arguing whether or not they would or wouldn't include Scotty. And I would be really, really surprised at this
They're not
stage,
going to do it.
24 years old, um, two-time
Mm-hmm.
all-star, like he's an all NBA caliber player right now,
Yes.
all league defender, like making a case for defensive player. They're not trading Scotty Barnes for Giannis right now, in addition to probably the picks that Milwaukee would
Mm-hmm.
also require. So that's why it doesn't feel real.
Sure. Okay.
To me, it's not really connected to Masai so much because if Bobby is motivated, if Bobby wanted to make it happen again, they've got the piece. Like if they wanted to do it, Scotty Barnes, see ya. But that's not going to happen. Now, if Giannis isn't dealt this week, then things get interesting because then things spill over into the summer. And then all of a sudden, maybe a package of CMB, RJ, who then would be an expiring contract, the mother load of picks and whatever contracts you would need. Maybe it's Ingram. Then maybe that becomes more desirable to the Bucks, who at that point will have shopped Giannis around for a little bit. Maybe there's not. Maybe the Godfather offer isn't out there. I think other teams could beat that, but doesn't mean necessarily that they will beat it. So
Mm-hmm.
I think if it spills over into the summer, the Raptors have a better chance than they do over the next 3 days.
Yeah. I I think it just objectively would be annoying. If I were a front office guy, I'd be annoyed because I'm like, why do I have to face an existential question of am I going to trade my franchise player for Giannis when I don't even know if Giannis is available? Like I don't even want that out there. I don't want that put out there. I don't want the Bucks taking that and running with it and putting it out as leverage for other teams. And now I got
Yeah,
to
that's a
answer
good point.
questions of what I want to trade my like. You know what I mean? It's just stupid. Like it's just like you're either going to do it or you don't. I feel like Milwaukee and Giannis aren't even operating in like again, I guess like fair terms. Now, granted, again, like this is their decision. It's between them. But like it literally affects the entire league in terms of holding up the whole trade market. So I don't know. I honestly I'd be annoyed if I were like even players in the league. I'd be annoyed. I'd be like, it would be my future's tied up in whether or not Giannis will he or won't he. Like it's been years of this. It's not even the first time. Pivoting to more realistic moves. Raptors backup centers. So, wow, that's a huge drop off from Giannis and Sabonis to just backup center targets. But Josh,
Yes.
if the Raptors want to shop a little bit smaller, maybe a little Goga Batadze, maybe a little bit of Day'Ron Sharp, maybe a little Daniel Gafford, who you've reported they've had some interest in. Walk me through like the discount section here.
Yves Missi in New Orleans, his name has
There you
come
go.
up.
Yeah, there you go.
Here's the problem with that group is like those teams are going to, and it sounds like have been asking for a first round pick for probably all those names that you just mentioned. And if I'm the Raptors, like,
That's ridiculous. I'm
but is
sorry.
it
That
like, I
just
mean, like
is.
in New
For
Orleans,
Goga
like they,
Batadze, we just saw them play the Magic. He didn't even
yeah, for
play. He's a
Goga
DNP.
Batadze.
Yeah.
No, but like New Orleans used a first round pick on Misi a couple of years ago. He had a really
Okay.
strong rookie year, a bit of a drop off this year. But like, yeah, if I'm
Hmm.
New Orleans, I'm asking for a first round pick. Do I end up maybe settling for less if they're motivated to move him? I don't even know why they should be that motivated to move him.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah.
But of that group, the guy that I like the best, and again, from what I've heard, like the Raptors like him as well as Daniel Gafford. I would maybe trade a first round pick for Daniel Gafford. The problem with Daniel Gafford is of those guys, like that is by far the trickiest contract to match.
Yeah.
To make the math work, and the Raptors are in. I always say when you're like cap when your cap table looks like this, it's like a
Hmm.
double-edged sword. It's great that like the money that they're spending is on the guys that are playing.
Hmm.
But it also makes like making a trade like this or really making any trade difficult because you don't have a Bruce Brown, Goran Dragic contract that you can throw in there
Yeah.
to make money work. Like you would have to, in order to make the money work for Daniel Gafford, unless you're trading like six guys, like you have to trade a starter. They're
Hmm.
not taking Jakob Pertl back unless you're attaching picks. So like, are you trading RJ Barrett for Daniel Gafford? Like how do you make that money work? So that's really, really tricky. And then yeah, those other guys, like you could do like an Ochai Abaji um for Goga Batadze. I think the Raptors would. Would Orlando like Abaji in theory actually makes some sense for Orlando? Like they could
Yeah. They have too
use
many bigs.
exactly. We saw them the other day. I know they lit the Raptors up, but like they're not a great
Hmm.
shooting team either. Like
Yeah.
on paper, or at least based on what he was last year, like a 3 and D guy. Sure, the problem is he's not hitting threes, and I mean he's been a little bit better lately, but it's been a rough season for Ochai. So
Hmm.
I don't know what the market is like for him. I would imagine at this point, even just getting out of his money, you probably need to attach a second round pick, let alone like get something of value back. So yeah, I mean it's tricky with those guys because you're bringing them in as insurance. They're situational bigs. You're probably really careful right now if you're the Raptors to not bring in somebody that is going to take minutes away from CMB, who's been
Hmm.
awesome, and Sandro, who's been really, really good. You've had success playing small ball. I think where there's value in those guys, again, in a situational role where, like,
Yeah.
depending on the matchup and the teams that they could end up playing in the playoffs at the top of the East, like most of them have really good bigs. So you might need to at least have the option of size, which right now they
Yeah.
don't. The wild card in all of this is Jakob Pertl and his health because like
Oh my
if
God.
they don't feel like they can rely on him for the rest of this season and beyond, then maybe they're not even shopping in this tier of players. Maybe you're looking at like the Sabonises and I don't know who else would be out there at this point, but I think even that's why that Anthony Davis stuff made some
Sure.
sense for
No,
people
it will fit.
because
He would
yeah, like
fit for sure.
honestly, I think the big one of the biggest parts of their pre-deadline prep and planning, unlike any other year where it's like okay, normally it's just like internal conversations and looking at these players, doing your due diligence and research and calling teams. Right now, like your answer might come from within. It's talking to Alex McKechnie. It's looking at
Yeah.
these test results. The health of Jakob Pertl is going to determine the caliber of player they need to get.
Hmm. Yeah. I've said on the show the last couple episodes, but I was at practice on Saturday and they finished practice. Darko did say that Jakob went through non-contact, which could mean anything. Like he did a mic and drill, with an assistant coach, which actually is probably what happened. But there, I was looking at the back of the gym where Alex has his office, and it was Alex, Jakob Poeltl, and Bobby Webster sitting down, the three of them, in a closed room meeting. So I'm like, oh, okay, that doesn't seem promising. But yeah, I mean, okay, I'll push back on the Daniel Gafford thing. I don't really want to pay a first round pick just to have like a best to fill in center. I know Gafford would improve
Yeah.
this team, and you probably would. I think it's fair that the teams want to get a first round pick back for him, but it's almost worse to me than even the Jakob Poeltl situation on the first time around when they traded for Yak, because they were desperate for a center back then, and then they gave up one for Yak. Yak was a better player at that time than we are getting for Daniel Gafford right now. Gafford has his
That's
own
fair.
injury problems as well.
Yep.
I honestly, I would rather just like, especially considering, you want to leave a little bit of runway for CMB in the future. You want to leave enough cap space in the future for Sandro to be re-signed, because obviously he's been a big part of this team. And he's due for a raise. Like, I'd rather even go the discount route. Like, I mean, look, I know it's not going to light anyone's like world on fire, but Kevon Looney makes like $8 million this year and $8 million next year, and that's it. He's 29 years old somehow, which is unbelievable, actually, because, like, how is he still 29? But it's like, if you just swapped Ochai for Kevon Looney, like, I think that's asset neutral, to be honest. You get a fill-in big who you can trust for a couple minutes in the playoffs. That's all I really want out of the situation. You're either going to go that route and not give up picks, or you're going to go the route where you go big and shop for Sabonis. Like, I'd actually rather make the trade for Sabonis than give up a first just for Gafford.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I think like everything is telling me right now that the Raptors' preference is to do something fairly small here over the next few days. Like,
Yes.
does that mean that they won't roll the dice on a bigger deal and maybe make the Sabonis trade? Again, like, I think Jakob Poeltl is the wild card there. But if not for the Jakob Poeltl situation, like, I think their strong preference here is to just kind of stay the course. And again, that's the Masai Ujiri playbook. I don't know necessarily that that's going to be what Bobby Webster does, but Masai for years, like that's one of the things that he was known for, at least early on in his tenure, is the like, we're giving the guys the platform to sink or swim. Initially, like that was the plan with the DeMar and Kyle team, is like, and Dwayne Casey. It's not even just with the players, with the coaches. Like, you tell me why we either need to go forward with you guys or make a move. And you look at any of the times that they have made a big move, a coaching change or a big deal, it's when they got a look at what they had, and those guys kind of showed the team what their ceiling was and forced a change. And I think like they've spent so much time and money investing in this group that they have now. It would be really, really strange for them to tear it apart, either partially or obviously fully. It would be partially in this case, giving up RJ or whatever. It would be really, really strange for them to start breaking it up without actually seeing how it looks in a meaningful game, because they haven't played like outside of like some NBA Cup games and like like we haven't seen them in a meaningful game at the end, in a competitive environment. Like that's what they want to see. And I think like you can plugging some holes, sure, going out and getting a guy that like might be an option in a playoff series against a certain team, sure. But yeah, I think the primary objective here is going to be getting under the tax, shedding whatever it is around $1 million. Secondary, to add some depth, and like that might not even. Again, if not for the Jakob Poeltl situation, like I think they would have been perfectly happy ducking the tax and then using the 15th roster spot on like maybe a buyout guy or somebody after the Mo Bamba.
Who Darker refused to play, by the way,
yes.
which is why he wasn't brought back for another 10-day. Yeah.
And that's the problem with some of these like discount bigs or the situational guys, the insurance guys, is like, if you're just bringing in a body to say that you have a 7-footer, to say like, oh, here's Aaron Baines, here's Alex Len, we've got the centers now. Like, if they're not going to play, or worse, if they are going to play and they're going to hurt you, if they're going to take minutes away from the guys that are playing right now and playing well, that they're trying to develop, like, why?
Well, I mean, honestly, some of these third string bigs are kind of like cannon fodder in a way, you know? Like, you kind of just, like last night against Yusuf Nurkic, you probably just want to save a little wear and tear on Scotty Barnes and CMB to be like,
Yeah.
hey, man, go out there and box this gigantic guy out. You know what I mean? That's really it. I mean, that's all you're really looking for in those situations. I do think that, like, if the Raptors, you know, I think Boston's a great example of this because they've been able to just find really undervalued bigs. And, you know, they got Nemias Queta, who anyone could have had. You know, Sacramento let him go. They brought him in. He played a little G League for them. And now he's like a pretty decently quality starting center.
Yeah.
Starting very physical, very strong rebounder, very, very good screener. Like, you know, would fit most teams, to be honest, especially right now. You know, they brought in like Luka Garza, who, you know, has somehow turned from like a low post guy in college to now being like a prolific 3-point shooter. So he's now like a stretch big who also offensive rebounds. Like, you know, it's just like if you can, and even their two-way guy, Amari Williams, I seen him a little bit in the G League. Like he's like 6'10", ball handling, but very athletic shot blocker. He could be like Robert Williams, but with a bit more handle. It's just like, but the thing is, they've invested in, I don't know, at most I would say like 5-8 million into that position, but they have found just enough in those groups to like actually make it work. Because you never really hear the Celtics linked to these bigs anymore, and they've been able to move off of Al Horford and Kristaps Porzingis without any sort of drop off at all. Versus when the Raptors try to do this, it's just like we cycle through the third string bigs that go absolutely nowhere. We've seen that pattern many times. And then the one time the Raptors really did invest, they put the money into Jakob. Then they paid him twice. And we've talked around it, but like this is the biggest thing holding up the Raptors. I mean, even more than the Giannis thing is if the Raptors really wanted to make a big move at the trade deadline, they needed Jakob Poeltl to be healthy and playing productively. Or maybe you just don't extend him, and therefore his contract is shorter and more palatable for teams to operate. But he's both the answer and the problem because, like, and I don't want to blame a guy for the health, but the reason the Raptors want to trade for a big so badly is because Jakob hasn't been able to play, and the reason the Raptors can't trade for help at the deadline is because Jakob hasn't been able to play. It boils down largely to that.
It's a really, really tough situation. And I didn't even hate the contract at the time. I didn't love that the Raptors,
it's understandable.
as the Raptors tend to do, like they bid against themselves in a situation where he wasn't on the open market. You pay a guy an above average market, an above market deal, or at least around market deal. But like on the surface in a vacuum, like that's what he was worth, roughly anyway. I'm a big Pirtle fan. I have been for a long time. Like I think his game translates really well to winning basketball. I think like I've called him for years the Raptors' most irreplaceable player, not because he's anywhere close to their best player, but and some of it just has to do with what they have behind him. But he does so many things that you need on both ends of the floor, and without him, like at least historically, this team has had a really tough time. Recently, they've been better. So like I didn't hate the money. I just like I mean, and it's tough because you don't know that the back thing wasn't an issue at the time, and then it flares up and. Like this is one of the worst contracts in the league right now as a result of the back thing. But if not for the back thing, then we're talking about, as Masai once called him, like probably a top 10 center in the league. I think he's pretty close to that if healthy, when healthy.
Okay, I mean, he's in that sort of 15 to 10 range.
Yeah.
I think because a lot of people have asked us, like, the reason they gave Jakob that extension is because they wanted cost certainty on Jakob Poeltl for the next 2 years. So Jakob Poeltl, prior to the extension, had 2 years left on his contract at a flat 19.5 million, which is what he's making this year and next year. The issue was the next year, it was a player option, and the Raptors were worried that he might opt out of it, go for, a free agency. I mean, to be honest, I don't know if Jakob would have commanded more than that, but there would have been a market out there for Jakob at basically 20 million, maybe even a slight raise. So in order to keep his money flat for next year and have him opt into that 19.5, the Raptors gave him essentially an additional 2 years afterwards, because the third year is like largely unguaranteed. But in order to sort of give him the extra 2 years, they gave him a bump of like, I don't know, 7 extra million, so like 27 and then 29. The bump, essentially, if you average it out to over the 3 years, a healthy Jakob Poeltl would have been worth that, especially to a Raptors team that needed a center. That's all good and fine, but when you sign a guy long term, you are baking in an element of risk, and right now the Raptors are seeing that element of risk right now.
Yeah.
So it was a big brain move in the moment, but right now we're seeing like the worst possible outcome for that. And I mean, besides the center position, I mean, I guess the Raptors could probably use some shooting as well. I mean, the Raptors are one of the worst shooting teams in the NBA. Weirdly enough, you don't hear the Raptors linked to that many like perimeter players, but I guess they already have too many to begin with. Last thing, just before we go, then. So Brandon Ingram gets snubbed, missing out on an All-Star game. Darko, Scotty, everybody on the team, obviously caping and taking in support of Brandon, which I think they should absolutely do. But if we revisit the trade a year on, it's like, man, I mean, if we got the worst case scenario out of the Jakob Poeltl extension, we got the best case scenario out of the Brandon Ingram trade.
Yeah, for sure. And like to me, that is his case to be an all-star is like you look at what the Raptors have done this year, and they have far and away exceeded anybody's reasonable expectations at 9 games over 500 right now and fourth in the Eastern Conference. And the two biggest reasons why, Scotty Barnes and his big leap that he's taken this year, and Ingram, his addition, and the fact that he's been healthy, because like his production, like nobody has ever questioned his all-star talent, his all-star ability, and we've basically seen it whenever he's been on the floor. Now, like how much were people paying attention to it when he was playing for a crappy team in New Orleans? And it was always going to be a tough sell for, ironically, the same reason why it's should have been a tough sell for somebody like Pascal Siakam this year, or why it's a tough sell for MPJ in Brooklyn, because he was playing for a bad team. But now he's healthy, right? Like he's on pace to set a career high in minutes and play 78, 79 games, which is the most since his rookie year. So he's answered those questions. He's contributing to winning. Like, is it an egregious snub for me? Like, no. I think he has a case in the same way that Siakam and Norman Powell had a case. And ironically, like, those are the two guys that got his spot. So, like, Raptors fans, I'm sure, have mixed feelings. I'm taking nothing away from... Yeah, I'm taking nothing away from Norm here. Like, I'm so incredibly happy for Norm. Like, what an incredible success story and career arc. But our guy Pascal, like I love Pascal. I think the world of Pascal as a player. He is an all-star caliber player. He's doing what he does every single year this year. And the fact that Indiana is last in the East is not on him. But at the same point, like at the end of the day, like this isn't even us saying this. Like the coaches are asked every year. Every coach is asked every year at some point. Like when you're putting together your ballot, what do you look at? What do you value? And they all say winning. So like, that to me is like, I'm a little bit surprised by that. And the rest of the voting played out that way too. Siakam, I believe, is the only player on a bottom 10 team in the NBA represented amongst like at least the coaches vote. I know Giannis got voted in there and that, but like outside of Siakam, every player that was voted in by the coaches is on a good team. So I'm a little bit surprised by Pascal. That's probably, if I was going to make a change, it would probably be that. I think BI has a reasonable chance as an injury replacement. Giannis obviously is going to get replaced. You can shift Norm or Towns over to the international team, so it can be an American that replaces Giannis. I don't know if it has to be an Eastern Conference player or how that works, but like again, like Michael Porter Jr., no thank you. Brooklyn's terrible. Derek White, if you're gonna reward winning, maybe, but like
he's shooting I think a lot lower percentage this year as a featured guy, which by the way no one should be surprised by. I mean obviously like you become like the starting point guard and the featured guy, your numbers are going to drop. But yeah, Derek White's shooting 39% from the field and 32% from three. Like, what are we doing?
And I get it. Like coaches, when they're putting in their votes, like they don't want to. They want to spread the love. They don't usually want to vote for multiple guys on one team unless it's like the team is having an incredible year. But like the Raptors have exceeded anybody's expectations, and this is the reason why. It's BI and Scotty. It's not like in the past with like those Celtics teams that were like pretty well balanced, or like what Indiana was doing last year. Like this is like two guys that are really carrying things in Toronto. So yeah,
Yeah.
like I think BI ends up getting in as an injury replacement. Giannis, but like also this is the year of the injury, unfortunately. Like everybody's getting
Yeah.
hurt, so like I'm wouldn't be shocked if there's somebody else that needs to be replaced at some point.
Yeah. Because people have like pointed out like maybe they use Embiid to replace Giannis, and it has been a great comeback year for Embiid. Like the fact that he's playing like 40 minutes now, it's like that surgeon performed miracles or something, on his knee, and it's unbelievable. But like I looked it up, he's played 20 less games than Brandon Ingram. Like it's like what are we even doing here? It's and obviously Embiid plays really well, and he is a better player when healthy than Brandon Ingram. There's no debate, but we're talking about 20, like that's like half the game so far played. That's 40% of the season. I think even in the Pascal case, like I've seen like Trae Young used to lead the league in like assists and be like top 3 or 5 in scoring, but the Hawks weren't in a playoff spot, so they just didn't put him in the All-Star game. Like that's just kind of how it went. Even the Norm case, Norm scoring 1 more point a game than Brandon Ingram and like I watched a fair number of Heat games. He doesn't get double teamed. It's really cowardly to me that every coach, well, at least half the coaches, because we watch every Raptors game in a lot of depth. Every coach comes into the game with the game plan to double team Brandon Ingram. Why are you double teaming a non-All-Star? Is your defense that bad? So like that's why I was really disappointed with sort of that miss, and I'm sure that the Raptors were too. By the way, Brandon's not even the biggest snub. I couldn't believe Kawhi Leonard didn't make the All-Star game. Kawhi's averaging 27 points per game on 50, 40, 90 splits, man.
Yeah.
Like, what are we even doing here? Like, come
Just
on.
for a lifetime, just for LeBron's lifetime achievement award.
What about Kawhi's lifetime achievement? This guy's won
Yeah.
2 chips and 2 Finals MVPs, and it's at home in Intuit. Are they punishing him for the Pablo Torre stuff? Like, what are we doing? It's unbelievable. Kawhi's one of the best. He's like been a top 10 performing player in the NBA, like easily. Like the fact that he's not even an All-Star game is nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I'm less worked up over the Jamal Shed snub now that there are actual real.
Yeah, fair enough.
I did use the word egregious in my tweet about Jamal Shed. That was an egregious snub, but some of these are really really bad. Şengün.
Yeah, Şengün. There you go. I mean, yeah. It's before we always had like obviously it's got to be an even number of East All-Stars and West All-Stars, but I think the international format does sort of factor in here a little bit. If I had to guess, that factors in a little bit. Even Jalen Johnson making the game. I'm sorry, but man, like, there's a lot of empty stats for me, man. I know I'm just hating on some of the guys who made the game, but like, I know Jalen Johnson's stats are popping off the page. Then how come the Atlanta Hawks can't even go 500, man? Why?
Now look, I'm no Keeks, but I did find this stat and it's pretty cool. If BI does get in, and I think we're both on the same page here that he should and he might. There'll be 6 years in between, a 6-year gap in between his All-Star appearances. Only 3 players have that big of a gap in between All-Star appearances over the last 35 years. Only 7 players in NBA history. Can you name the ones over the last 35 years?
Wow, only 2 players who have gone 6 years between making the All-Star game?
Yeah.
I don't even know, man. Can you give me like positions?
A point guard who's still active has the record for the biggest gap. It's a decade, 10-year gap between All-Star appearances.
10-year gap and they're still active. I mean, the oldest point guards are like, I don't think CP went that long. Mike Conley, Drew Holiday. Oh yeah, that's a good one. Yes, because
10-year gap.
He made it with the Sixers, and then he made it. Who did he make it with? Boston.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then Manu was 6 years as well.
Really? I guess the West is really competitive. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, that's a good one right there, Josh.
And like I was saying earlier, like the production has been pretty steady. Like I think in each of those 6 years, he's averaged between like 20 and 25 points, shooting between 46 and 49%, but he's averaged 50 games a year during that stretch. Whereas, like, the
Right.
one question, the one thing that people had about BI, like, he's silenced that this year. Knock on wood, that continues, but, like,
Yeah.
looks like an all-star to me.
There you go. Josh, we appreciate you so much. Congratulations once again.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with the trade deadline. I know this is probably not the top most important thing in your life right now, but is it
I'm
top 10 at
gonna be
least?
awake anyway, and I know the Raptors love to make their trades in the middle of the night. So, yeah,
Oh, all right.
give me a 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. deal, Bobby, or maybe just don't do that much at all. Also, that would be easy for me. So, like, Ochai for and a second round pick for something. Sure, we can do that. We can deal with that.
Bobby, if you do Ochai and a second round pick for some random center, I'm not waking up at 3 a.m. to
Yeah, no,
react to that, okay?
I'm
I'll do
not
that in the
going. I'm
morning.
not going in for that. I'm on
Yeah,
Pat
there you
leave.
go. There you go. All right. I appreciate you guys so much for listening. Again, obviously, follow all of Josh's work at TSN. I don't know. I mean, I feel like you're too big time to really plug, but everyone knows who you are, Josh. I appreciate you for taking the time. And
Anytime, man.
yeah, we will see what happens to the trade deadline this year. Obviously, we'll be going live on Thursday as the trade deadline unfolds, if not just to see what the Raptors do, but what the rest of the league does. So tune in then. Obviously, we'll still have lots of like little bits in between. We'll, respond and react to some of the trade rumors that come out. We'll be seeing tons of them over this week. So I appreciate you guys for listening. It's been the Hello and Welcome podcast, and we'll catch you next time.